Okay. So yeah, I mean, just to hop in there, I know research is really hard to find, but you can always do research on your own. I believe it's called systematic review, just like researching other people's research and like creating your own is really helpful. So anyway, this is a financial aid question. So I hope you guys have some insight to that. Do you give scholarships to competitive applicants, and how much financially does your institution give out? I know it's not necessarily a application question, but
It's okay. It's a little easier for me only because I can literally say our tuition, our students, our first 5 cohorts will be tuition free. So they won't have to worry about that. As far as anything beyond that, we will be offering limited amount of scholarships and grants for students. That is for like living expenses and things like that. So that opportunity is there. I would say about 90% of our current cohort, it has some sort of grant going towards living expenses.
Wow, I wish I didn't have to follow you. We are a private institution, and we do give out quite a bit of scholarship funding. Probably 80 to 90% of our students will receive some type of scholarships, but there's also federal funding and grants available as well. But that is where I think we are at a distinct disadvantage because we do not have free tuition at present.
good to know. And wow, they are just coming in. So do you guys recommend waiting to submit spring quarter grades, or just immediately submitting the MCAS, as, before your grades like officially come in?
Depends on what your prior grades look like. If you have a strong GPA and this is really just a value add, then submit. If that's not the case, it may prevent you from getting an interview. And so you really want to think about whether or not this is the right cycle to apply. We do actually do updates, and I will defer to Agasia if they do that through their application process as well. So that if you have grades that are forthcoming, then we'll look at those as part of your updates. But you want to make sure that it's going to increase your ability to be successful in the cycle. So if you have grades that are outstanding, make sure they're strong.
Mm-hmm. This is where we're going to differ a little bit, only because we do not accept updates unless you have already been invited to interviews. So it is really going to be, this is why I always say apply when you're ready. If you are needing that spring semester to enhance your GPA, then maybe this might not be the cycle for you to apply to. So apply when you're ready, because at that point, once you apply, we're not accepting updates from our, just every applicant. If that was the case, I would still be doing updates right now, even though the cycle has ended. But if you have been selected to interview, that is when we start receiving updates from our applicants at that point, because it could be some time between when they applied and when they received the interview. But apply when you're ready. So if you do need that spring update, you might need to wait.
Actually, Agasia, to your point, actually, we don't do it unless you've been invited to an interview as well. So thank you for that clarification.
Okay. And we have a lot of questions about GPA. So what would you consider to be a strong GPA? And if an applicant has both a really strong GPA and an MCAT, what is something that can still bring them down as an applicant? What do you look at and be like, you test well, but...
You guys are getting real specific. Oh, goodness. Again, you guys are wanting us to put a benchmark there. You definitely need to be above a 3.0 across the board. Now, obviously, we would love you to be higher, but if you're looking for a number, this is just based on what we think will also do, or people who do well in medical school. That's actually a graph. I don't have the access to the graph. If somebody has it, throw it in the chat. But there's a graph of students that do very well in medical school and what their GPAs are. You might want to look for that in on AAMC. They do have that as a reference guide. As far as what could stop you, so if you have a high GPA, high science GPA, anything could stop you. Maybe your personal statement wasn't very clear in telling us why you want to become a physician. Maybe your secondary essays wasn't very clear. Maybe, and this may sound, cliche, but directions. Read the directions of the essays. If you didn't answer the essay, and there was a specific question, and that person didn't get that answer from that specific essay, that's gonna, ding you. And this is just from file reviewers. I'm not one of those file reviewers, but review everything. If you have grammatical errors, typos, there are some file reviewers that will stop reading your essay, stop reading your application because they felt you didn't take enough time to actually go through your application to update, your errors and your typos. True story. I know quite a few people that are like that. And then if you are lucky enough, blessed enough to receive an interview, a ton of things could happen in interview wise. So there are so many different ways, different things that could pop up, but I don't like to focus on that because I'm positive.
I would agree with all of that. I certainly think that making sure your application is really up to snuff. The typo, we have quite a few reviewers who would do exactly the same. So just being careful with that. And then certainly the interviews I think also are critical. Really have a clear understanding of why you want to be a physician and be able to articulate that. Really want to be comfortable with your virtual, we call it a virtual handshake. How you appear and how you interview virtually is really critical in this season, as critical as it was when you were interviewing in person. Because generally by the time you've gotten to a point of being offered an interview, we've already assessed and identified that you can manage the rigors of medical school. Now the question is, are you a good fit? And so that's where we determine those things.
Dr. Chambers, I'm glad you brought up virtual handshake and just virtual in general. Don't forget that it's still an interview, even though it's virtual. I've had people fall asleep during the interview process. Yes. and it wasn't like in the actual interview, like one-on-one, but it was, maybe we had a speaker that was speaking. One person in particular I'm thinking of, God bless this person, fell asleep during our Dean CEO was talking. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I wanted to message them, like, turn your camera off if you have to. It's okay to step away, but we are looking at that. Everyone's looking at that. So be mindful of that. Be mindful of your backgrounds and where you're interviewing from. Be mindful of interruptions. Like I said, if you have to, it's totally okay for us. Turn your camera off if you have to, and just come back when things are better and composed. But optics are there. And just one more fun thing, I've even seen a person who was great from the top up, and then we were taking a break and she stood up and she had on shorts, and I was like, oh goodness.
Oh no.
Again, be mindful. You don't want to be these people, but it's still an interview. Treat it as such, even if it's virtual. I'm sorry, I just had to throw that out there because we've seen some interesting things this cycle.
And I just wanted to add that in addition to your academic success, you need to be able to showcase the experiences as well. And I think sometimes people don't utilize the experience tabs as well as they could. They don't use all 15 experiences. They don't write a reflection on that said experience and how it helped lead them down this path. So if you're looking strictly on paper prior to the interview, make sure that it's not just your GPA and MCAT that stand out, but the rest of the application as well.
Really good to know. Thank you. It is past 3 o'clock, so I think that we're about done. I apologize for not being able to get through all of the questions because they are getting a little bit repetitive. And this is being recorded. It will be posted on the Career Center's YouTube channel. So if you guys ever need to go back and look through what our panelists have had to say, please do. So I think we are about done here. So Jackie, if you can come on.
Yes, so thank you everyone for being here today. Huge thank you to our panelists for being here. Thank you so much. Thank you for answering all of these questions and giving us application tips. I do just want to share my screen just one more time for our presentation feedback. So for students, if you would be able to click on the link, or I'll put the link in the chat, or use the QR code to just send in your feedback for this presentation. That would be super helpful. But aside for that, thank you all for being here today. This concludes our presentation, and I hope you all have a good rest of your week. Thank you.
Thank you for including us in this.
Thank you.
Thank you so
everyone.
much. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, so it's just us 6.
Awesome.
Okay.
Hi everyone, my name is Christina. I just want to introduce myself and thank you for doing this. You guys did a great job.